Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Hedging Screens podcast. As always, I'm your host, Zach Cronin, and I am just brimming with elation that you would come back and listen to another episode of this podcast. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're having a great day, a great week, a great year. I know that if you're a Lakers fan, you're having a pretty great last couple of days. As you all know, on, I believe it was Sunday, yeah, because today's Tuesday, on Sunday, the 2020 NBA Finals wrapped up with the Los Angeles Lakers defeating the Miami Heat in 6 games, bringing their 17th title back to the Staples Center. LeBron, of course, brings home his fourth NBA championship, also brought home his fourth Finals MVP. Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard won their first titles. Rajon Rondo won another title. And overall, it was just a spectacular series. I can't lie though. The last game was a little upsetting, I guess, the way that it turned out. The final score 106-93 in favor of the Lakers. Of course, throughout the game, Miami just they didn't really they were very inconsistent all the way through, and just judging from how the game went, they never really got into a flow, which was pretty weird considering how they had played throughout the series. Like, there were times where they went on runs and they looked superior to the Lakers, and just overall, they looked competitive. So to see them come out and just fall flat in game six it sucked. I can't even lie. Like, I put the game on and I wanted it to be competitive because it's the NBA Finals. You got the two best teams going head to head. Miami, in this case, trying to stave off elimination, and the Lakers, of course, trying to bring home another title. And to see it play out like this uh, it stunk, especially because everyone knew that Miami could have played better. I'm just going to pull up the numbers real quick. They didn't play bad, really. I mean, they got absolutely fucking smacked in the second quarter. They got outscored by 20, and that was really the nail in the coffin. Even though they fought back valiantly to make the final deficit only 13, I think they were down by as many as like 33 or something like that. It definitely crossed over into the 30s at some point. But you look at the box score: 44% shooting, 36% shooting from three, 25 assists, only 13 turnovers, and they put up 93 points. Where they really fell short was, one, Jimmy Butler didn't have the Jimmy Butler type games that we had seen previously in the series. Like, he didn't put up a 40-point triple double. He only had 12. 12 points in an elimination game it's not going to get it done, especially from your best player. Like, he had to have been better. I'll come out and say it right now. Jimmy Butler had to have been better. I mean, he did have 8 assists and 7 boards, but when you're the guy on a potential championship team, you can't have nights like that. I mean, LeBron didn't have any nights like that in this series. Anthony Davis didn't. Actually, no, AD did. I think he also had one. I think it was in either game 3 or game 4. I can't remember. But I mean, that's the rub. Like, he had to have been better. Bam looked fantastic at 25 and 10. Goran Dragic came back, but really wasn't much of a factor. He had missed the first 5 games with plantar fasciitis, and I really didn't expect him to make much of an impact in his first game back. And I think above all else, we just have to credit the Lakers for being resilient. A couple weeks ago, when I did the finals prediction show, I was rooting for the Lakers, but I picked Miami to win the series in 7 games. And of course, that came back to their depth. This was at the time when everybody was fully healthy. Dragic was healthy, Bam was healthy, Jimmy Butler, of course, was healthy, and they had Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Jay Crowder, Kelly Olynyk, all these guys. They just had more weapons than the Lakers did. Of course, rooting for the Lakers, I wanted to see LeBron get another title. I wanted to see Anthony Davis win a title. But more importantly, I wanted to see something good happen in this shitty year that 2020 has been. And of course, I'm talking about the Lakers winning a title the same year that Kobe Bryant passed. It means a lot. I mean, it was it was very joyful. Couple tears shed. I'm not ashamed to admit that, as I'm sure a lot of people did, just seeing LeBron and AD talk about what Kobe meant to them as a mentor, as a big brother as a teammate on the Olympic teams. And Anthony Davis said it best. They didn't want to let Kobe down, and I thought it was a very touching moment. And beyond that, just getting back to the on-court stuff, the Lakers, after losing a heartbreaking game in Game 5, just the way it ended was it was so deflating almost. So LeBron has this spectacular game, finished with, what was it, 40, I think? Him and Jimmy Butler just traded buckets all game long. Jimmy had 35. LeBron, did he have 35? 35 or 38? Jimmy had 35. LeBron had 40. And it came down to the last play. LeBron, of course, had the ball in his hands, dished it out to Danny Green, who was not having that great of an evening. And he just bricked a three. Markieff Morris gets the rebound, but it fizzled really quickly after that. And aside from Danny Green getting death threats, which was fucking super lame, that was disgusting. Disappointed but not surprised, unfortunately, knowing how some people get with sports. But to just see the Lakers bounce back from that, because I thought that was the nail in the coffin, honestly. Losing a game like that in that manner when LeBron and AD put together such fantastic performances, and then Bam has another couple of days to get healthy, and Jimmy Butler has another day off, and then Dragic comes back and he could potentially make some sort of an impact. Although we didn't know what it would look like, it was still another body out there, another playmaker. And I have to give credit where credit is due to the Lakers as a whole, but also to LeBron James. Had a triple-double in the series finale, 28 points, 14 boards, 10 assists, and rightfully won Finals MVP. He had averages of, I think, somewhere around like 28, 11, and 9. I think I'll get those exactly right now. He had averaged 29.8 points, 11.8 boards, 8.5 assists, and shot 59% from the floor. Say what you will about LeBron James, and I really don't want to get into the GOAT conversation, because there's really no convincing anybody who has their side picked, whether they're Team LeBron, Team Jordan, Team Kobe, Team Kareem. There's really no convincing. All of those guys have worthy resumes, but at least to me, the GOAT conversation has only 3 people in it, and that's Jordan, LeBron, and Kareem. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. But again, say whatever you will about LeBron James. Criticize him for the way he left Cleveland. Criticize him for not playing that well in 2011. But ever since then, and even before that, when he went to the finals in 2007, even before that, he showed up when he needed to. 2011 is the only blemish on his resume. In every finals thereafter, he put up numbers. He has 4 finals MVPs for a reason, and that's because he is arguably the greatest player to ever touch a basketball. And he proved it again, 35 years old. He'll be 36 in a couple months. I think December 30th, I believe. He'll be 36 in a few months. And for him to turn it on like that is just, it's incomprehensible almost. To be 35, and we know that he's not the same player that he once was. He's not LeBron back in 2014, who was just the best player in the league playing at his highest potential. He's a different kind of player, and we saw that. We saw it throughout the postseason. We saw it against Denver. We saw it against Denver. We saw it against Houston. There were just games where LeBron straight up didn't have it, and he had to defer to Anthony Davis. Thankfully, they had Anthony Davis. Otherwise, the Lakers would have been out a long time ago. But everybody needs a sidekick. He had it with Kyrie, had it with D Wade. All of the great players had a number 2 who was maybe not at their level, but close to it. Jordan and Pippen, Magic and Kareem, Shaq and Kobe, Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Like all of the teams that won titles had an elite guy with a guy who could be just as elite when necessary. I mean, really the only exception I can think of is the 04 Pistons, but that was still a fantastic team from top to bottom. They had guys who filled their roles perfectly, and they are an outlier, but I'm not trying to shit on them or anything. But Anthony Davis, shout out to him. He wanted to prove himself as a truly elite big man, and I think he did. We knew the kind of player that Anthony Davis was. A freak defensively, arguably the best defensive player in the league. Could have won the defensive player of the year, had a very solid case. Didn't play out that way, but everyone knows what Anthony Davis does on that end. But then to see his transformation as an offensive player from where he was at Kentucky back in 2012, I think, somewhere around there, where he didn't have many moves in his arsenal and he was beholden to others to make plays for him, to now being someone who the offense can run through and who can put up 25, 27, 28 points a game, score from all three levels, play in the post, catch and shoot on the perimeter. It's mind-blowing. And he was the type of guy that the Lakers needed. And to his credit, he showed up. He averaged 25 points through these 6 games. Like, he was there when the Lakers needed him. And thank God that he was, because like, I'm looking at the rest of the box score right now, and the numbers are not that impressive. KCP was the 3rd highest scorer, averaged 13 points a night, about 13 points a night, but shot less than 38% from the floor. Not good. Everyone after that was almost equally as dreadful. Rajon Rondo had a couple solid nights, which was much needed. Maybe not as an offensive player, but his playmaking, his pestering of the Miami ball handlers on defense really paid dividends. And I believe, if I remember correctly, he shot like 8 of 9 from 3 in Game 6. I'm just going to fact check this real quick. No, pardon me. He was 3 of 4 from 3 in Game 6, 8 of 11 overall. 8 of 9, I think that's what it was. He was 8 for 9 shooting overall whenever Mike Breen mentioned that somewhere in the 3rd or 4th quarter. But really, the Lakers just, on paper, they really should not have won this series. I'm gonna be straight up with it. Like, I'm looking at Miami's numbers, and granted, the margin of victory was, what is that, 5.5, 110 to 104.5, 5.5, 4.5. I don't know. I'm not trying to do the math right now, but you had Jimmy Butler averaged 26 points. Bam averaged 15. Tyler Hero at 15. Duncan Robinson at about 13. Kelly Olynyk at a little bit less than 12. Jay Crowder at about 11. Kendrick Nunn at about 11. Like, just from top to bottom, the Heat looked like the better team. That obviously was not the case. Now, with all of this said, before I continue to talk about the Lakers, I want to give just a tremendous round of applause to the Miami Heat, to Eric Spoelstra, to Pat Riley, to that whole organization, because, you know, it's cliche for a reason, but they should not have been in this spot. They simply should not have been. Compared to the rest of the teams in the Eastern Conference, they didn't have a super duper star. They didn't have a Giannis. They didn't have a Pascal Siakam. They don't have a Joel Embiid or a Ben Simmons or even a Jason Tatum. They should not have beaten those teams to get here. And their run, I think, will go down as one of the most impressive in the history of the NBA. Granted, they don't have any hardware to show for it outside of being the Eastern Conference champions, but like, sometimes you just go up against one of the greatest players of all time and you fall flat. And there are reasons why Miami fell flat. They really didn't show up in the last game, where they showed up when it was too little too late. If Jimmy Butler was more assertive, I think he only had 10 shots in the series finale, which is just far too little for a player of his caliber, but again, for a player who has such a prominent role in that team, on that team. And that was a little upsetting. I would have liked a repeat of Game 5 where Jimmy and LeBron are just trading buckets and they have like 80 points combined. And, you know, mano a mano, best player comes out on top. But Miami finishes this season. They head into the bubble. I don't know. They head into the bubble at whatever the fuck their record was. 41-24. They go 3-5 in the bubble. 3-5. Did not look that great, but the playoffs started and they ascended to a new level. They transcended this earth and just they were seeing basketball on a molecular level and bending the game to their will almost. They washed the Pacers in 4 games. They bamboozled the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 and then won a very gritty series against a very talented Boston Celtics team that took 6 games. It was improbable, unlikely, surprising. All of these adjectives, these somewhat negative sounding adjectives, at least depending on what side you're on, and yet they went to the finals, and because of what they had done in the three previous series, they earned the right to have people choose them. This wasn't a case of the Golden State Warriors going against LeBron and the Cavs a couple of years ago, where everyone knew the Warriors were going to win, and the only question was whether the Cavs would win one game or whether they would get swept. That was the only question. Let's try this again. That was the only question, was would Golden State sweep Cleveland? That was not the case with the series. The bigger question would be, would the series go 6 games or 7 games? And both teams had a shot to win. Miami, maybe not based on the talent, but based on how they had played previously. And then Jimmy Butler comes in, suits up, and throws down some of the best basketball we have ever seen from him. Like, everyone knows that Jimmy Butler is an all-NBA caliber type player. First team? No. Second or third? More likely, especially considering his potential as a lockdown defender, as arguably the best perimeter defender in the NBA. He plays these 6 games looking like an all-NBA first team type player. 26 points, 8 boards, nearly 10 assists, 2 steals, and he shot 55% from the floor. He was just almost uncontainable getting to the free throw line. The only place he struggled was the perimeter. He shot less than 31%, and Jimmy Butler has really never been like that big of a three-point threat. He could hit a couple every now and then, but he wasn't someone who was going to consistently make, 4 or 5 threes at 38, 39, 40%. That's just not in his game. But luckily for him, the Miami Heat built this roster to maximize his potential, and they even got more out of him as a playmaker. Bam, Jay Crowder, Kelly Olynyk, Duncan Robinson, all of those things that I said a couple weeks ago with Miami having an abundance of playmakers, it was still true, right? Even though they were without Dragic for 5 games and without Bam for 3 or 4, I think. No, 2. I'm sorry. Even though they were without Bam for 2 games, they still had an abundance of playmakers. Of course, it was to a lesser degree, and therefore Jimmy Butler had to shoulder more of he had to shoulder more of the load. He had to be more of a one-man army for this team, and he filled that role incredibly seamlessly. It was just fantastic. It was awesome. It was dazzling. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see that level of play from Jimmy Butler again, but I hope we do, because it's always a treat when you get to watch 2 guys just go at each other and someone hits a shot, the other guy comes down and answers it, and they just trade buckets back and forth, back and forth. That was the type of potential this series had, and for the most part, it lived up to that potential. It would have been nice to have gotten an extra game, but I don't think the Lakers wanted to let that happen, especially knowing how, no, I'm not sure they care, but if the Lakers had blown a 3-1 lead, more LeBron James specifically, the internet would have the Twitter app would have probably deleted itself off of my phone because of how hot it would have gotten. But that, of course, that's all hypothetical. That's all speculation. And I want to talk about the Lakers, but I don't know if I can say anything that hasn't already been said. I mean, it was an all-time great postseason run, just from the first round to the finals. The big thing was, of course, the Lakers' quality of opponent was inferior to the Miami Heat. As we know, the Heat faced two elite teams in the Eastern Conference Finals before going to face the best team in the West, and the Lakers did not. They went up against Portland, and then Houston, and then Denver. Now, pardon me, Denver, although the series only lasted 5 games, Denver played some decent basketball, as did Houston. Both of those teams could have upset the Lakers. How unlikely it was, I think it was probably less than 10%. The Miami Heat were undeniably the most difficult opponent that the Lakers went up against. That's just, you can argue against it, but I mean, 6 games in the series as opposed to 5, I'll take that opinion and I'm going to run with it. But I'm just going to cruise down to the stats here on Basketball Reference. So, for the playoffs as a whole, LeBron and AD, from start to finish, were basically putting up the same types of numbers. They averaged almost the same amount of points, averaged similar rebounding numbers. The point totals were 27.7 for Davis, 27.6 for LeBron, which is right in line with LeBron's career average, I believe. 10 rebounds for LeBron, or 10.8 rebounds, 9.8 rebounds for LeBron and AD respectively. LeBron, of course, handed out significantly more assists just because of the role that he plays, and Anthony Davis was that defensive stopper, that anchor that they so desperately needed. And if those guys played anything less than that, these Lakers title hopes would have began to just wash away. They had to be almost perfect in every series. At least so we thought, until we found out that they were not going to have to go up against the Clippers, and therefore Denver had more people were more confident in Denver, knowing that they just dispatched the Clippers, who were probably better suited to beat the Lakers than everybody else. Didn't play out that way. What are you going to do? So they go to Miami, they weren't in Miami, but they meet up with Miami on the court, and LeBron knows what's on the line. He's been there in the past, and he leads his team to victory. Now, there have been people talking about the validity of this championship, and I do not want to hear anything about this championship being invalid. I forgot who ran this poll, but I believe like 20% of people, it was like 18 or 20% of people, I believe. Please don't quote me. I could be misremembering, but I don't believe I am. Anyway, we'll find out. We'll find out in a couple days. I believe it was 18 to 20% of people felt that this championship should have had an asterisk next to it. And I don't know why that is. This poll came out. It had to be at the beginning of the finals or shortly after the first couple of games. And I wonder how much of LeBron and the Lakers being in the finals impacted people's decisions for the worse. For whatever reason, a lot of people have a hate boner for LeBron. And I don't know why this is. I don't know why people hate when there are athletes who are good at their job. It's very strange to me, the whole just hating somebody because of their occupation. It's very odd. It's very bizarre to me. Maybe I'm in the minority because I see athletes as humans and they're just out going to work. Granted, it's for our entertainment and it's not a regular job. So it's a very odd dynamic. Nevertheless, I do think it's weird when people hate on athletes, especially someone like LeBron James. But why feel that this championship is not legitimate? It's as legitimate, or potentially even more legitimate, than any other championship ever, because of just the circumstances that it took place under. The NBA, the world shut down for a couple months. The NBA did not start back up until July 31st, I think. They did not start back up until July 31st. They had to move all these people, players, coaches, league personnel, people who work in the actual league office, reporters, everybody into a bubble in the middle of Florida, the COVID hotspot. That by itself put up a lot of red flags, myself included. I was very skeptical going into the season, the resumption of the season. They didn't take everybody, which was, I want to say, I don't know. It didn't make sense for them to bring everybody, especially the teams that were already mathematically eliminated, but they were doing it for monetary reasons, whatever. The league has to do what they at least got to do what they got to do to bring in some sort of cash. They have to have some sort of revenue coming in. But I just felt that it was such a risk. Not because of what the league was doing, maybe a little bit because of what the league was doing, but because their partnership with Disney World meant that the Disney employees were not subject to the same procedures. They didn't have to follow the NBA protocol. They had to follow whatever Disney's protocol was. As soon as you let someone into the bubble who doesn't have to abide by the same procedures, there is no bubble. The bubble's popped. Weeks go by, 3-4 rounds of coronavirus tests come back. All of them are negative. Nobody tested positive since play restarted. That is just so exceptional. And I'm beyond proud of what the NBA accomplished, of what everybody accomplished, because one person could have ruined this for everybody. Daniel House could have ruined it for everybody. Rashawn Holmes could have ruined it for everybody. Lou Williams could have ruined it for everybody. And although those guys had some minor transgressions, at least in the case of Williams and Holmes, they came back, they quarantined, they did what they had to do. Lou Williams missed a few games, I believe, but they came back and they followed the quarantine procedures and everything continued smoothly. As we've seen, that was a very difficult task for a lot of teams in other sports. Baseball had a horrible COVID spread at the beginning of their season. The NFL is just, I don't know what's going on with the NFL right now. They are trying to move about this as fluidly as possible, and I don't want to hate on them just yet, because for the most part, they have handled this quite well. Just in the sense of them moving games around and maintaining the fluidity of the schedule. I do have to commend them for that. They haven't fucked up too badly as of now. That could, of course, change, because there is an NFL game scheduled for Tuesday night, which is tonight, or last night if you're listening to this, between, I believe it's Tennessee and Buffalo? I don't know. Tennessee and somebody else. But I saw someone reported this morning that the Titans are expecting 8,000 to 9,000 fans in the stadium, which, dude, the Titans have the worst COVID outbreak of probably any team. I don't remember the exact number, but the last time I checked, it was about, I think, 16 players and personnel tested positive. Not that great, dude. Not great. So for the NBA not to have an outbreak of any sort is just like, I can't describe it. It's incomprehensible almost. And for that to persist from July 31st all the way through October 11th is just, it was the experiment. It showed it could work. Knowing all of that, any team that won the title this year, whether it was the Bucks, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Rockets, the Nets, whoever, whatever team won the title this year, they deserved it. Like, they came in after 4 months off, played ball on a neutral location, continued to put up numbers. I mean, the play was fantastic. Like, there were a few bad games throughout this bubble, and as a fan, that's what you want to see. You want to see as little bad basketball as possible. Guys came in and put up numbers. Like, this championship is not invalid. It simply is not. You can have your own opinion, but I would like to hear those opinions, because I don't understand how someone could watch what happened and think that, oh yeah, this team, like, this season was a wash. It clearly wasn't. It was a difficult stretch for all the teams that were involved. All 16 teams that traveled to Orlando were subject to this new world, and just the toll that it took on them mentally, being away from their family, being away from their loved ones, being trapped in their hotel rooms for however many hours a day. Like, it was, I wasn't even there. Like, I'm still living my life as normally as I can. They did not have the same freedoms that you and I did. For them to overcome that and bring a title home, that is no easy task. It, like, it, I don't even know what else I can say on the matter. I feel like I've explained myself enough. But, like, just, yeah, I don't even know. I'm struggling to find the words for this, but overall, I just want to congratulate the Lakers again. Congratulate everyone from the top of that organization to the bottom. I want to also congratulate the league, Adam Silver, all the teams that came through, all the players. Just another round of applause to them for making this work, because for a lot of people, like, the last 6 months or so, it's been tough. It's been very tough, for whatever reason. People being on furlough, people not being able to pay their bills, put food on the table. Like, these are unprecedented times we're living in. And not everyone is having an easy go of it. And the NBA and sports in general is an escape for a lot of people. So knowing that you could come home, or if you're already at home, just turn on an NBA game and watch, and it was almost as if nothing was different. Like, the viewing experience was a little strange at first, but I think the NBA made it as normal as they could. The virtual fans, it was a great gimmick. They did a great thing with the sounds, and just like the just it was as atmospheric as it could have been. One thing I thought was quite hilarious was there would be times when the audio would just cut out of the games for a couple seconds because guys are swearing at the officials or cursing at their teammates or whatever. I thought that was kind of funny, but the NBA, I think they saved a lot of people, and I think they helped keep a lot of people sane over the last couple of months. Going forward, I don't know what's in store. We have football, both college and professional, so we do have more options. But I'm just thinking in terms of next season, because the league, I think they're going to take a little bit of time off, and then they're going to have to really figure out what the plan is for next season. I believe there's no shot that the season happens earlier than December 1st. Christmas Day at the earliest for me. I feel like that would be the perfect date if the league wanted to kick up before the start of 2021, just because it would be like the lockout shortened season, and you get this great slate of games to open the year, and then you carry on as normal. The NBA, they have an uphill battle, and whether Adam Silver wants to start in January, whether he wants to start as soon as there is a vaccine widely available, I trust that they're gonna do a good job with everything. I mean, they did a good job with the bubble. I know they probably don't want to have to go back. Not really because of, like, I don't think they'd be concerned with the product, but just not having fans in the arenas greatly cuts the revenue. And with the whole China situation happening earlier this year, the NBA's monetary situation is a little up in the air right now, and teams are going to have to get very creative. They're going to have to do a lot of mental and financial gymnastics. Fortunately, these organizations have a lot of smart people in them who know how to navigate these types of waters, but I put my faith in Adam Silver that him and his his colleagues in the league office are going to figure something out. And I think that's really it as far as NBA news is concerned. I know that coaching searches are heating up a little bit. Ty Lue is, hold on, let me actually fact check this because I talk out of my ass a lot and I feel like that's not good for my credibility. So let me head over to Twitter and see what Woj and Shams are saying about Tyronn Lue. Where is it? Here we go. ESPN story with Tim McMahon on Ty Lue's coaching candidacy with the Rockets gaining momentum after Monday meeting. Lue remains a prominent part of Clippers search. So Tyronn Lue is a very hot commodity right now. I remember before Brooklyn signed Steve Nash, he was someone who I thought would fit very well with that team, mainly because he had already coached Kyrie Irving and they seemed to have quite the relationship with one another, which is always good. But I mean, Ty Lue, say what you will about him as a game planner. If he's going to a prominent organization and competing for a title, the biggest thing there is that you're gonna have to manage egos. That's just how it is. You're gonna have to make sure that whoever the star player is, that they're happy. Because if they're not happy, you guys are fucked. And I think he could do that. He spent time with LeBron and Kyrie in Cleveland. He knows how to command respect from certain guys without seeming overbearing. And I mean, he's proven himself. He's proven himself as a coach. So shout out to him. I hope he gets a job sometime soon. I hope Nate McMillan gets a job sometime soon. And I hope Kenny Atkinson gets a job sometime soon because all of those guys are fantastic coaches. I don't think that Kenny should have been fired when he was fired. And I don't think that Nate McMillan should have been fired at all. That was just a fucking disastrous play by the Indiana Pacers. And with all the NBA talk out of the way, we are shifting to fantasy football. And I really don't want to talk about it this week because this was fucking awful. This was the worst week of fantasy football for me. And it's not over yet. This is the game tonight. It counts for week 5. Is this week 5? Counts for week 5. I'm going to drop to 3-1. I have a 15-point lead on my friend Kieran. And it's going to evaporate. This dude has 4 players going tonight. Derrick Henry, Jonnu Smith, AJ Brown, and Steven Gostkowski. Oh God, it's so deflating. If I somehow pull out a victory this week, I don't know what I'll do. I'll be uncontainable, that's for sure. But I mean, it was just one of those weeks where guys simply did not put up numbers. And being in a 12-man league, there really aren't many options, right? So I fucked up on Thursday. I didn't swap anybody out for Leonard Fournette, but it's not like it mattered because no one on my team really played well. So I got a fat 0 on Thursday because of my mistake. But Amari Cooper did not play well on Sunday. Of course, a lot of that has to do with Dak exiting early. I hope he gets well soon. Although it's fun to troll the Cowboys, you hate seeing someone injured so violently. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, Amari Cooper did dick. Traquan Smith, he was a late addition because Michael Thomas misses yet another week, and the Saints' bye week is next week, but he will hopefully be healthy for the playoffs or the fantasy football playoffs and the late stretch of the season, which I'm really holding out for. Calvin Ridley had a fantastic game, putting up numbers in garbage time with no Julio Jones. Kind of a wasted performance, unfortunately, but I'll take what I can get. Same thing with Patty Mahomes, was slinging that rock, kind of. I think he only completed like 50% of his passes, but what are you going to do? Chris Carson also had a decent game, put up about 20 points. Shout out to him, but yeah, Traquan Smith, Dalton Schultz. I added Chris Thompson late. He got me about 7, but just looking at my bench, DeAndre Swift, bye week. Michael Thomas, out. N'Keal Harry, bye week. Game is postponed until next Monday? I don't even know, dude. Austin Hooper had 10. Whatever. Probably could have played him. Didn't. Henry Ruggs had 20 points, 2 receptions, 118 yards, a touchdown. Whatever, bro. I don't really give a fuck. So, I'll be driving to 3-2. Still, I think I'll be 5th place or so. This league is very top heavy. There are pretty much 4 elite teams I put myself in there with the exception of this week because a lot of guys simply did not perform. But yeah, I'm doing all right, all things considered. Um, Please give me some, wish me some luck. Hopefully these four guys don't combine for 15 points, but knowing my luck, Kieran's going to finish with 160 points before everything is all said and done. And with that, I want to thank you guys yet again for tuning in. Please like the video, like the podcast, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, all that fun stuff. All the links to do everything will be down in the description, and I will see you guys next week.